And still. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Justice's Waiting Room. This is a daily live podcast where we discuss news and politics. And good morning, good morning. There's room for almost everyone. Oh, I gotta do some stuff. And remember, every morning, instead of me sitting behind a graphic and twiddling my thumbs, I suppose, I'm just gonna post a link to war. Okay. All right. So I think beyond a shadow of a doubt, the first and most important thing Ooh. Okay. I lied. I lied. This is better. Start here. Remember, good morning. Bob Dub, CC. I'm just going to read the headline. Okay. Just going to read the headline. Tesla's in worse shape than you think, from CNN. So, we're going to start with that and kind of try to keep that smile off your face, knowing that Tesla's 24% increase in their stock price has done nothing for its short, mid, long term futures. Those are hollow victories. Okay. And I can't find a story right now, and that'd be why I'm kind of. But Akeem Jeffries and Cory Booker started a sit-in about 6 a.m. Sunday morning on the steps of the U.S. Capitol, uh, going live on both of their channels, answering questions, talking with anybody that wanted to. It's my dogs missing me in the background. Um, and they're bringing attention to the fact that um, they're set to vote on the budget upcoming. Yeah. No, she's just off. She didn't feel good today, so they're probably whining for me and because my wife's kind of did not wake up in her usual vibrant self. Um, so she's homesick today. We're all down and out. But yeah, Cory Booker and Hakeem Jeffries staged a sit-in yesterday in the steps of the U.S. Capitol, talking about um, this budget, that agreement coming up, cutting $181 billion from the Medicaid budget. Okay, the 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 very last I heard was $181 billion cut, and again, not going anywhere but a billionaire's pocket. So if you're one of the people that are on Medicare or Medicaid, sorry, and you voted for this, when your Medicaid benefits are cut short and you're forced to pay what income you do have out for any health care you need, that's your vote working for you, right? So I just think about all the innocent people that will be harmed um, by a reduction in Medicaid benefits. Like I said, last I heard 181 billion. So I know there's a lot of people waking up this morning that knew that Cory Booker and Hakeem Jeffries staged a sit-in at the steps of the U.S. Capitol yesterday so they could get the word out. Okay. But they're out there saying, hey, $181 billion means people muerte, with beyond a question. Okay. So like I said, I try to start you off with some good news. Uh, when I went to bed last night was the last I'd heard. Oh, Tesla's stock's up 24%. Now I also happen to know they'd lost like 70% of their value um, since November 5th. Okay. But thank you, Bectrola. Exactly. The whole reason to say, hey, Tesla's in a state of shock and know that that 24% increase in their stock price, smoke and mirrors. Okay? That has to feel good. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, also, Cory Booker and Hakeem Jeffries staging a sit-in on the steps of the U.S. Capitol is meant to spark people to call their state representatives and say, hey, we got to vote against this budget that's going to cut a couple $100 billion from the Medicaid budget. Mm-hmm. You can do this yourself. You can just download the 5Calls app on your phone. There's a script and everything. Okay? Along those lines, apps. Download the Goods Unite Us app. Start spending your money more wisely and in the right places, namely locally. Now, there's an awful lot of fear mongering going around, and I don't want to be too far ahead or behind. I don't want to be doing it. You get what I'm saying? I don't want to be too far ahead of the fear mongering. I'm already seeing people fear mongering. And I also don't want to be so I'm behind. And I certainly didn't want to get out ahead. Where, how, with all these great tariffs, are companies still able to afford to send goods to the United States? Because, we talked about it, how we lack the infrastructure here to collect these tariffs. And I have to think about risk and risk management when it comes to large amounts of goods and that are being transported. And I'm starting to hear talk, starting to smell a little bit of a conversation about some shelves being empty. And that now is the time to get out and get your TP and your paper towels and your baby wipes and diapers and stuff, like paper products, right? Things that you need. You might want to get soap and shampoo and stuff like that. A lot of people are telling other people to get like rice and beans and stuff like that. I don't know that we're there, but what I would think about is toilet paper, paper towels, Some people are thinking a little more intermediate term. I'm not. I'm just saying, uh, with price uncertainty comes inventory uncertainty, and suffice it to say, Donald Trump's tariffs have placed quite a bit of price uncertainty upon the world economy, and now it's not selling, so I'm not going to send it there. And so now the ports are in rice flour powdered milk. There you go. Okay. So this is kind of what I've been telling you in terms of get 8 hours of sleep a night. You probably need to take a nap, drink water, eat right, exercise. Right. These things largely don't cost much. Okay. And then since November 5th, I've said now's the time to grow a garden. Okay, we've had a little bit of crazy weather pattern around here, so but it's about that time. It's like I said, I'm focused on getting myself into the financial position to do many a thing, right? But yeah, for those of you that remember the shelves during COVID, you know, um, yeah. So I just want to make sure that we did talk about it. Sorry about I got a little boxer's welt this morning when I woke up. Maybe it'll turn into a zit. I can pop it or something. Morning special K. Now, as far as what's going on this week, remember today is the tail end, the very end of the week without General Mills. So for those of you that have been really hankering for some cereal, have at it as of tomorrow, I guess. And then Wednesday, hey, there is an LGBTQIA plus march on DC on Wednesday, April 30th. Okay. And then in the same breath, then Thursday starts May Day protest and strike. Okay. You can go to generalstrikeus.com. You can go to maydaymovementusa.org. And I think we said yesterday it's We Are Vivid. I think. .org is the okay. There's also a letter campaign by Generation Thursday Gen X to mail everyone. Okay? Hmm. I guess 50501 is going to keep doing their thing, huh? So the cool thing about R50501, okay, kind of regardless with what's going on with the founders and the national and all that stuff, um, it's got a state by state uh, group wherever you live in the United States. If you go scroll down the right of R50501, it's organized by state. You can go there. You can catch cunts. You can catch tons of team spirit, right? Develop some state pride, right? City pride, movement pride, all that happy shit. Um, and I noticed, for example, on the main R50501 graphic for May Day, there are protests in like 7 cities in New Jersey. So again, I don't want you to think you're alone in this. You know, it's part of the reason it's kind of set up like it is, right? Daily live podcast where we discuss news and politics. We are part of the resistance. That's what this is. Okay? You notice there's no ads, okay? Only ever asked for help when I really needed it. Beyond that, you don't see me trying to scrape money off of you for your time. I'm here to point you in the right direction and say, hey, for my money, Protest Finder USA are 50501s where a lot of my attention goes. Okay? Again, kind of regardless of what they got going on in terms of beef, right? Like I'm not involved in any of that shit. I care about, hey Empress, I care about like the organization, what we're actually doing. Okay? There you go. Here's a very long YouTube video, by the way. Here's the live from Cory Booker and Hakeem Jeffries. And hey, Allie, one of the things that I saw, hey, Hugo, one of the things that I saw that I wanted to pass along, Stepanek, the former CIA analyst, said stop saying oligarchs, say kings, no kings, right? And I initially thought it was kind of silly. Like it's already here. Why can't we just call it what it is? And again, it's almost like a proverb that keeps coming up in my every fucking day. Half of all people are stupid. The other half of are even stupider. Rest in peace, fucking George Carlin. Okay. But there's a reason that they're like, hey, stop saying fucking oligarchs. No kings. I think it reaches a wider audience. Yeah, the no kings in America. Yeah. Okay, and then to add one more subreddit, okay, I also have come away struck with what I'm finding on suppressed news. Okay. The first link, okay, it's talking about a study done in the UK where the majority of young people in the UK don't think that Israel should exist. It's because it's not. It doesn't exist. It's not a country. It's a rogue nation state with a military and a bunch of money that has been committing a G-side going on 75 years. Well, Fusion, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pick apart part of one of your sentences and riff off of it. Okay? Half the country elected these officials. First things first. Let's get to the half. Half. Half of 335 is how much? Okay? Less than that voted. Not half. Less than a quarter. Before you consider that he cheated, actually. And then as far as all the other elected officials, they got a lot less votes than Donald Trump, except in some places. And that's evidence of cheating. Besides the fact, I'm saying like more like 1 out of 5. So it ain't half. It's like 17% chance you run into somebody in there Trump supporter. It's just part of it. You know? Some people can't help but lick boot. How's my hand? One of the things that I have learned as a result of this is I think we all handle pain very differently. I think I should have probably gone to the ER because it's been a real chore to keep it clean, all that shit. Um, but I'm grateful for my wife who has like bought stuff for me to take care of it myself. So fortunately, Taylor brought home A&D ointment and gauze and a wrap. I had it under a cold spigot for a while, cold faucet for a while. Um, hmm. I was making I was making burgers on the stove, and Taylor said I used too much olive oil. Whatever. Um, yeah, I tell you what, A&D did it. I mean, like the thing on my hand, this thing on my hand where I caught most of it, it looked pretty good last night before I went to bed. So A&D, yeah, I was making burgers and flipped grease, but the thing about it was coming from my face. So while everybody's like, "Oh my God, you know you burnt your hand," yo, I went like this, okay, and I only got one little spot on my face. That's definitely burning. That shit hurt. Ow. Okay, but Taylor brought home that night A&D, and I had A&D on it for 48 hours, and then switched to an antibiotic, like a bacitracin, and I've just kept it clean. And again, like I said, the only thing I've learned is like everybody processes pain differently. Like this should have been a fucking ER trip. Um, and again, I'm a disabled vet. I could just gone to the fucking VA. It ain't that deep. It's just on the other side of town, and it's my hand, and I'd have had to drive myself. You know what I mean? So there's a whole lot of woulda, shoulda, coulda. But again, I'm just lucky to be here. You think with the little fancy little restaurants run out of food, they'll do something? Yeah, right. Mm-mm. Imagine you go to a restaurant and you sit down to order, and they say, "Okay, we have tap water and ice. We have um, tap water, ice, no soda, and liquor. So if you want, you can do shots. Beyond that, we've got dinner rolls, frozen dinner rolls that we can make. Okay, and all the unsavory cuts of meat that nobody buys, that's about to be thrown out. It's all that's left. And the malformed potatoes and the odd looking carrots and celery, and then what do you get? Just a big stew. Okay. When and death of all this small group people having control over country or organization or institution. So a fusion. So we talked about half. Okay. Uh, and then these officials, like non-presidential officials, half the country didn't elect them. They're citizens of their state did, which are far less than half, obviously. Okay, so and when you think about, there are 600 seats of government in the United States and 335 million people. So definitely an oligarchy can take place within the US government, right? Because 600 out of 335 million is less than 1%, right? Again, so imagine these rich fucks, they have a reservation, they had to prepay for, they get there, the server comes out and says, "We have tap water and ice and booze. There's some cuts of meat that no one wanted to buy. It's all we got left. And anything that wasn't pretty that we didn't serve first, that's what we have left." And that's the restaurants before they run out completely and shut their doors. Okay, so small businesses go first. So that's why I've been telling people since the election to fucking start supporting your local community, because those places need to help to stay open, where the fast food restaurants are going to have the money to push through, right? One of the things they say about the economy is that the rich people hurt the least, okay? Now, it just so happens that the rich people in the United States have inflated their worth with the US stock market and have lost their asshole. Yes, they're making some moves and making some money back, and but the damage is done, and every day the stock market goes down, and overall, week over week, the stock market goes down, month over month, the stock market goes down. By many people's estimate, this is the worst 100 days anybody's ever had as president. Okay? But the only thing he hasn't done, again, is, as I said, is unalive Americans. He has ordered people's homes entered without a warrant. That's right. The President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, has ordered ICE to enter people's homes without a warrant. Now, keep in mind, this was a while ago. Yeah. Yep. And understand that those small businesses, it's not just in the United States. Yeah. Those mom and pop shops on those islands that people like to take vacations to because they're cheap. Yeah. Those are no longer affordable. Mm-hmm. All this for cheaper groceries and gas, right? Got about 40 people watching this Monday morning. Make sure everybody has a great week. Okay. Yep. But make sure, again, as I say multiple times every day, advocating for a healthy lifestyle, that you get 8+ hours of sleep a night. Okay. Take a nap. Probably need a nap. Drink water, eat right, and exercise. And as I've said, it's time to grow a garden. Again, a lot of people are picking up on this, right? Look at this. Nearly half of all Trump voters regret their vote. So I know again, there's 8 of you that don't regret your vote, but no, nearly half of Trump voters regret their vote. Okay? So expect that people that didn't agree with you just a few months ago, okay? That's evidence of what? We've been talking about this. No, that's evidence of what? Oh, is this the development of a sense of empathy? Is this what happens when you're fucking brainwashed and you get isolated and you're made to feel the weight of the decisions that you made and ultimately forced to come around on that and say, voting for him was a mistake. I made an error here, right? Would you say that the way that we've treated these brainwashed motherfuckers is starting to work? Because that would be the evidence, right? Zeke said, what I want is for that huge spending bill not to pass. Yes, agree. Morning, Danielle. Okay. So I know that people are looking for the silver lining, but, one of the themes of the show, one of the many we've been talking about, is part of what is happening is de-escalation. It's clear to me that precautions were taken during the election, the certification, the inauguration, to limit limit casualties, and somewhere along the line, I see it as a gambit. Like that, we gambled somewhere. I want to say it's on his death. He won't make it 6 months, and then we can act. Um, you know, somebody said, Mark Root said. Matter of fact, it wasn't somebody. Hey Jerry, Mark Root said, you ought to come visit The Hague in June. And at the rate he's going, it does kind of go without saying, like, he's headed there one way or the other. As I've said, and I'm going to continue to say every single day, the President of the United States deported nearly 300 people. Okay? Although it's more like he had them kidnapped and then trafficked to El Salvador to be held in a former prison. Okay? El Salvador's corrupt president, Bukele, is using those people as pawns and is trying to trade Venezuela for political prisoners. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I did not stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night. Okay? But that's illegal as fuck. Yeah. That's illegal as fuck. That's not going to go unnoticed by the international community. Okay? And a lot of people are trying to figure out how. They're like, wait, how is the international community going to get involved? And I'll tell you. It's really very, very easy to explain. Okay? when the President of the United States declares the Alien Enemies Act, I think it's of 77, or maybe that's the IEEPA, might be 78. When he declares the Alien Enemies Act, it put us in a wartime status, which affects the UN, which affects NATO. Okay. Remember how we were talking about UN, Article 5, all that shit? Okay. So, again, the more I think about this, the more I'm like, actually, masterful play here was they gave you their plan. Yes, people are going to be negatively affected, but understand body count. We're playing a numbers game. See, we can point to some victims, right? And we've named them: Kilmar Abrego Garcia, Merwin Gutierrez, right? Andre, that's a pretty name, by the way, for the gay hairdresser. Okay? It's probably Andre or something like that. Andry. Okay? But we don't have any bodies. And again, I've said this whole time, have I not? One person muertes. Okay? It's a matter of national security. If one person dies internationally, it's a matter of international security. So again, we don't have action because we don't have bodies, and right now they're not hard crimes. So understand it's going to move a little slower. And it's not my choice. Okay? I hate to say this because it sounds awful lot like the people that I don't want to hang around with. But that's one of the things that I thought was sort of screwed up about not the Marine Corps, but the adjacent government agencies, your Blackwaters and Triple Canopies. They lacked red tape that typically held Marines back. One of the things that they talked about, my senior Marines that had been on several deployments to Iraq, that were getting NCO, getting combat action ribbons, getting promoted, right? These guys had already been through an enlistment and were some hard chargers. They said they're pit bulls on a leash. That there's a lot of red tape. It's just what we call like the Geneva Convention, the UCMJ. There are a lot of non-state and federal laws in play while you're on active duty that simply don't exist when you're part of these OGAs. And you got to think there's a reason Elon Musk had his security deputized, because there's no other way those people were going to work in the law enforcement community. They were stuck in security forces. And again, I don't mean any disrespect. There's plenty of guys that held their own in the military that moved on to these OGAs and did good work, I'm sure. But a lot of the guys that I knew, that I saw at Steps and Taps, that were going to these OGAs were fucking crazy bloodsuckers that saw combat as like blood sport, right? Like they were in it for the violence. Those people are the ones that Elon Musk chose, In my eyes, that's Hitler going after the communists first. Going after law enforcement first. Getting them on your side. This regime's done that as well. And it's as evidenced by, again, I'm going to keep pointing it out. One of the first things that this regime did when it got into power was steal from the police. And nothing happened. The police didn't strike. And that's evidence that the Republicans own the police. They could do whatever they want. They could steal from them. And you know what they'll do? Go stand in front of your dealership and guard your cars. Hey, I guess we kind of came back around to Tesla after all, didn't we? So, I want to point out the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, sort of denying slash, I don't know what you call this. Obviously, he's not taking responsibility, but he's definitely saying that it's misleading to say that the U.S. deported children and their mother and made children stand for themselves in trial. And then there's this interview with this Israeli soldier that I think Angie, well, I mean, I don't know about you, but I am the kind of person that I have a guilty conscience, right? So as soon as I make any sort of decision at all, okay, I'm attacking self, second guessing self. I'm just like everybody else, okay? I'm not the kind of person that could do something cruel to other people and it just roll off my back. I'm not the kind of person that could fuck up deportation. Deportation, by the way, is a legal process. Arresting people and flying them out of the country overnight without the permission of the courts is not deportation. When the U.S. when a federal judge says you can't deport people using the Alien Enemies Act, and they do it anyway, and they defy a court order, and they order. And remember, the reason that this goes down is because ICE is now funded by Palantir, which is Peter Thiel's company. Okay. And keep in mind that stock is mad crumbling too. Okay. And I mean, here's the think about this. Watch this video, okay, of this person, okay, who I assume is like an Israeli politician. I don't actually know who these people are, but watch this video where he said multiple times Gaza should be wiped off the map. Okay? So understand that attitude, right? The very people that are okay with this violence, this genocide in Gaza. Free Palestine, by the way. Are justifying it. I just showed you those are the deep pockets that fund US government officials. Those people that are saying Gaza should be wiped off the map and they're getting what and the Palestinian people are getting what they deserve. Okay? Again, free Palestine, Slava fucking Ukraine. I saw that Trump lied and said that Zelensky would negotiate and give up Crimea to Russia, and you know that's not true. It's said this whole time, not giving up land to an invader. Here's obviously the attack on. Yeah, I think that when we look back, you know, on what I've done here, they will talk about I was talking about shit popping off months before it happened, and I'm sort of learning now um, the difference between talking about shit and actually doing shit. And again, it wasn't really until they put about 300 people in CCOT that I my brain is like, "Oh yeah, remember all that shit you talked about Article 5, about the ICC, about Jack Smith saying what happened on January 6, 2021 was an insurrection. Donald Trump supported and orchestrated an insurrection, right? And therefore is in violation of the 14th Amendment, Article 3, but he won the election. So we're going to let him have it. And again, I think, and I have said, and this has been a consistent theme on the show the whole time, where I've talked about de escalation, about how to uh, deprogram people who have been brainwashed. Um, right? And we've talked about this. And I think that the difference between then and now is talking about it versus doing it and actually committing the fucking crime. Um, and we didn't talk about it, but I think we should, and we need to give it the right containment containment container. Okay, so let's talk about Donald Trump's appearance at the Pope's funeral. Okay, now the first things first, not at all like Obama's tan suit. Obama's tan suit wasn't breaking any dress code. Okay. What Donald Trump did was show up to the Pope's funeral in a blue suit and tie, and that was not within the dress code, the ask. Typically, you wear black to mourn people. Yeah. Typically, you don't wear like a fun navy with a couple different patterns on it, you know? You don't normally do that. Some people in the chat have said he was also on his fucking cell phone during mass. Okay. Okay. He chose to be disrespectful. And again, Bektrola. He also fucking fell asleep. Isn't that like a cobalt blue? Yeah. Yeah. He was exceptionally disrespectful. Yes, exactly. So I want to make sure we house that kind of in its own space. At the Pope's funeral, Donald Trump was on his cell phone during mass. He broke the dress code by wearing the wrong color almost on purpose, and then he fucking fell asleep. Um, First of all, great job USA. The best of the best, right? Best and the brightest. That was a code to Putin. Awesome. At least he didn't wear a red tie. And then I don't know if any of y'all saw this, but I want to make sure I did acknowledge that I did see this. Two Russian uh, transplants to Germany were arrested as spies, and they found Pete Hegseth's private phone number in their cell phones. So I just want to make sure we get this out here. I know people's headers. Wait, what? Two Russian transplants were arrested in Germany, and both of those people had Pete Hegseth's phone number, his private phone number, in their phones. Okay, just want to make sure. You always want to make sure, like, I'm not saying it. People aren't like, wait a minute, wait a minute. No. Somebody said, keep the faith, justice is coming. Oh, I mean, I've said this whole time that justice doesn't look like what you think it does. And there's too many people out there that are bloodthirsty. I don't even know what it is, but this is the first time I've ever seen. I can see it all. I can see all the chats, man. It's just what are you on? Are you maybe need to update your phone or um refresh? I can see all the chat. Keep in mind, those of you on TikTok, I'm also co-streaming live on YouTube and have been every day that we go live, talking about the news and politics. Okay. So if you see me posting links in the chat and you notice it's not actually hitting the chat, TikTok filters those links out. So if you want to read a news story whose headline I read, you can go up my profile, click on those links, go to my YouTube channel, subscribe to my YouTube channel. You could just come into the show on YouTube in that chat room and actually click the links that I post. Okay? Hey, Al, I have decided you're all figments of my imagination. Yo! You see that party? Oh yeah, baby. Yeah, it was an illegal after hours club that people mostly like rented out and shit. What's up, Bobby? Here's 60 minutes going to town on old Don on all the people kissing the ring. Keep in mind, one of the things that Donald Trump has to do, or it spells absolute fucking disaster for the U.S. economy, is he has to have a tariff deal in place with all these countries. And he does not. He doesn't have the energy to do all that. It's funny. You know how he's saying we can't have due process for all these people we need to deport? It would take 200 years. Yeah. He's saying that knowing he ain't getting those deals done with all them countries that he just put tariffs on. And hey, I'm telling you, if you think it's bad now, understand that there's a tariff pause. We were talking about the story from what was that, The Guardian, where there was an illegal club in Colorado Springs and like 10 agencies descended upon this club on Saturday. There were illegal immigrants, there were active duty service members, there was all kinds of drugs and shit, including the first time I've ever seen pink cocaine in a news story. I've heard the term before, but I'd never seen it in a story about like a high profile arrest that took place. I just think I know that's not interesting to many people, um, but obviously somebody come get their boot is one of the things I was thinking when I'm reading about a, a basically a brothel. Hell yeah, I love my country. I fucking serve my country. You know what I mean? I usually wear Marine Corps hats. Just a little mild today. I thought I'd throw on the Colts hat. But yeah, I usually wear a second Mardiv hat. Might have to get another one. This one's scuffed, boys. Um, but yeah, usually I'm wearing that. Okay, just Took the dogs out this morning. It was a little mild. Thought on a beanie. Be nice and warm today. JB Pritzker. So remember the people during this time that were actually doing stuff, right? JB Pritzker, two-term. He's a two-term Illinois governor. Yeah, two-term governor of Illinois. Called out Democrats for being do-nothings, and as fractured as we are a country, we are even more fractured in this two-party system. Remember the movie Black Klansman? True story. Happened in Colorado Springs. That's why I was talking about how crazy that is. Yeah, that there's a reason I'm establishing the American Socialist Party. This country deserves a workers' party that is pro-equality, meaning you see half of the political system tearing down DEI all across the country, and the other half standing there with their hands in their pockets, and then turning around and asking people for money and asking them to vote, and then they put their hands back in their pockets, and they're just like, yeah, as long as you keep voting, keep voting, get us in there, and we'll do the thing, right? Um, and it's just more excuses and excuses and excuses. And it's a lot of misinformation. So we also got to say in the same breath, it's a lot of Chinese and Russian disinformation. That's just the fucking truth. Okay? That's why I posted that story about 10 federal agencies, 100 people, guns, drugs, active duty service members, illegal immigrants. Yo, what the fuck? But yeah, we've talked a lot about Jasmine Crockett, AOC, Bernie Sanders, Cory Booker, and Hakeem Jeffries. We got to start talking about JB Pritzker. Okay? But if we're going to talk about do nothing Democrats, we got to talk about the Blue Dog Caucus. We've talked about how on the right we have MAGA and we have traditional Republicans, and how I see this administration as the death of the Republican Party. I think the MAGA, what will happen at midterms is they'll lose their asses. They'll fight each other. MAGA is going to take its ball and go home. And the Republican Party will be left with no money and no cohesion at all. And I've said it before that I see this regime as a death of the Republican Party. I'm leery of a uniparty system, of the Democrats not being in a hurry once they get back in power, not moving fast enough, not being progressive enough. And the data supports this. Most eligible voters didn't vote. Most eligible voters didn't vote. That's not true. Let me back up. The most eligible voters didn't vote in this election. something like 36 million. I think there was about 170, 160 million. Yeah. And I think the reason that we have people staying home at election time is because neither of these parties, neither the Democratic nor the Republican Party, represents their values. Enter the American Socialist Party, ASP, whose logo is an Egyptian cobra, whose values are pro equality, pro union, aiming at getting everyone universal health care, education, income, and housing. 4 legs. TikTok making me jump through hoops to stay live. I think the way that you increase voter participation is by actually having a platform and a plan. And I think you have a bunch of people in the United States that are not interested in voting for what's available to them. Marie Perez. But yeah, the Blue Dog Caucus, 54 elected Democrats that vote. I'm reading. I'm reading. Stand by. Okay, so in summation from what I've read, Carol Sue, if I were to break down the fundamental difference between libertarianism and socialism, it's that libertarians do not believe in the state. They do not believe in private property. They do not believe in private property. They want to see the dissolution of the state. They are Here's what they're talking about. Here's what libertarianism suggests. And I wholeheartedly disagree, and there's a reason that it fucking failed. Okay? Uh, Libertarianism sees capitalism as a problem and the problem. Okay? Libertarians want to see the dissolution of state, and they also want to see decentralization and individualism. Okay, here's the main issue that I have with libertarianism, where it's all about you're on your, you're free to be on your own and be who you want to be, and fuck corporations and fuck the state as a means of control, and fuck democracy and all that. It's like, listen, hippie, like, slow down, stop sucking on ashwagandha, calm the fuck down, understand you can't eliminate private property. You can't eliminate private property. You can't eliminate the state. So you're an idiot. You have to work within the system we're in. We're in a democratic system that has 50 fucking states, and has, when you talk about the state, you're talking about locusts of control. Like, who control? You have federal government agencies, and you have the state. Okay, so think about when you have Republicans in power and they're withholding funding to other states, okay, and controlling fund. For the record, they're not supposed to be able to do that. Donald Trump is the president and does not have the purse strings, and all he did was delay. And understand, one of the things about this administration that we have to understand, yeah, they lost me at, well, they lost me at the dissolution of the state, where I was like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? When the federal government's all fucked up, it's the fucking state who tends to fucking get it right, right? Who do you think's plowing your roads and shit? That's what always baffles me when people want to talk about their HOA. And I'm like, oh, what does your HOA cost? I have talked to people that pay more than my mortgage just for their HOA. And I'm like, what does your HOA do? And they were like, oh, they plow the roads. And I'm like, no, they don't. No, they don't. Your state does. Do they own equipment? No. So your HOA lies to you and tells you that money changes hands, and that's how we get our fucking road plowed? Yeah, that happened to me when I bought my house. It said there was no HOA within 90 days of moving in. There's a HOA telling me that the money that they collect is for a pond that's streets over, and for our road to get plowed. And it just so happened that my brother owns a landscaping company and also does snow removal in the fucking winter. It's a big moneymaker. The state plows the streets and roads. The city plows the streets and roads. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just know that if it's not registered, it's not legitimate. It's mostly a racket, and it's mostly a racist thing meant to keep out people of color. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I refuse. I don't pay my HOA fee. I haven't paid it in years. Uh huh. But yeah, I want to make sure that somebody asked a question. I like when people ask a question and I don't just know the answer, right? And I had to go like read about what do libertarians believe, right? Okay. So you would call a libertarian like an anti-authoritarian socialist. Somebody, again, I've said before, at my core, I am an anarchist, right? And if I were stupid and this deep, I would be a fucking libertarian. Okay? And so, because I contain multitudes, right, I can both in my mind's eye be satiated fucking like you have no idea when there's fucking chaos. You have no idea when there's chaos. My brain is like, ah, yeah, that's the good shit. When there's just chaos, I love that. Okay, but also, people are afraid of socialism because of egalitarianism. I'm telling you, half of all people are stupid, the other half are even stupider. You don't know what socialism is. You hear somebody talk about it, you go look in Webster's dictionary, the second fucking word of that definition trips you up, dude. You look at the definition of socialism and it says any egalitarian, and immediately you're like, what the, but wait, what the fuck does that mean? And then you got to go look up egalitarian, and by the time you get back to the definition of socialism and you realize egalitarianism is pro-equality. So in your brain, you're like, socialism is any pro-equality theory, whether economic, social, or political. So remember, I always tell people money is what matters, right? People to care about the economic stance of socialists. I'm for the removal of interest, rent, and taxes per the economic theory of socialism, is that rent, interest, and taxes are a derivative of your labor, and we ought to see to their end or their limit. Mm-hmm. Either tax everyone equally or tax everyone less. Since we can't manage tax everyone equally, okay? So the economic theory of socialism is the removal of rent, interest, and taxes. People ask about like the social theory, right? Well, obviously, if libertarianism is for the dissolution of the state, and they're basically like anarchist socialists, right? They see all these things as problems. They don't have solutions for these problems, right? And instead they just want anarchy. Okay, but yeah, socialism is any egalitarian movement, whether it's a social theory, an economic theory, or political theory. It has to include some things in order for it to be inherently socialist. Otherwise, it isn't. That's not socialism. But you have to have taken over the means of production and the social ownership of business, right? And the destruction of private equity. Okay, so understand there's a difference. There is a difference between wanting to dissolve the state, like, no, there's a difference between dissolving the state and then essentially wanting to see the rise of unions. I don't know where I was going with it, but it's an okay place to land. For the record, I think I had a better thought coming. Okay, but if somebody that's libertarian wants the dissolution of the state, that means you want to be able to rely on the state less and be more self-sufficient. And I just don't think people are. That's the problem. Is they try to sell us libertarianism, right? And it's like, that shit sucks. The thing about being a syndicalist socialist means I'm pro-union, pro-equality, right? And then along the way, there are other things that I've picked up that are socialist in nature, that are like foundational pieces of the future of the American Socialist Party, which is universal health care, education, income, and housing. And I think it's super easy. And keep in mind, I'm the founder of the American Socialist Party, and I'm sitting here telling you, you'll win every fucking election. Every election. We don't take money from Russia or Israel. We only take individual donations. We are not affiliated with any PACs. We have a treasurer who is also the founder of the fucking party, who's taking in money, right? Individual donors only. Raise enough money to entice a candidate. I will pay someone to run, but it's got to be the right person. It literally, they have to be paid to do that by someone. Why not have a party pay? Pay someone that's best for the job to run for the job. And understand, like, if a job pays like $75,000 that you're trying to run for, yeah, no. We're not, and you can't walk back your stances. So you as being, and think about it, there's no such thing as the violent left. So understand, there's not anything left of, I want everyone to have universal healthcare, education, income, and housing. Right? I want to see the dissolution of rent, interest, and taxes as they are derivative of labor. I want to see prosperity. I want to see more small businesses. I want to see more people join unions, right? I want to see pride festivals, not pride marches, pride festivals. I want the people to be celebrating. No. This is a Learn Live, Carol Sue. It's what I come here to do. Gonna go? So people ask me, okay, well, what's libertarianism? Libertarianism are anarchists that are for the dissolution of this dissolution of the state, that are against private property. And again, I think it's the anarchist thing and the dissolution of the state thing. Those are okay. So keep in mind, I don't think that's leftist. I don't think dissolving the state is a leftist or social. Like, understand, socialism is very much about what is good for everyone. Democracy. I know it sounds fucking crazy. The problem is that we don't have a democracy. And instead of, and that's what the right says, right? The right says we live in a republic, a democratic republic. And my goal is to change that to a democratic socialist republic. When you say make America great again, what if you could make people want to fucking live here and call themselves Americans again? Like, what if being an American citizen meant you didn't have to die broke with a bunch of healthcare debt? Medical debt, sorry. What if you didn't spend the better part of your money on your student loans? What if you didn't know what those were? What if there wasn't a great cost associated with your education? And I want to point out, there are going to be those people that sit in the audience of my podcast and are like, it'll never fucking happen, Jared. And it's like, Harvard already went tuition free, and they'll pay for your books too if your family makes under 250 and 250,000. They'll pay for your tuition. Under 100,000, they'll pay for tuition and room and board and books. So they effectively made a 4-year degree free at Harvard. So when you say that can't happen, and I say already has, same thing with universal housing. Or no, let's go universal income, right? Because that's the one that when they realize 33 of 34 developed countries have universal health care, that kind of throws your argument that we can't have that here out the window. Okay? Much larger countries. Same healthcare companies, universal healthcare. Just so everyone understands. United Healthcare exists in Canada. Okay? They don't need American dollars to fund the healthcare in all those other countries. Okay? And I worked in healthcare for years, and I only ever met one person that said I would rather pay for healthcare. And I told them that. I just want you to know I'm one of the very best that there is. If I felt like hanging on to what you got is where you should be, but you are paying $229 a year too much for your health care, or a month, sorry. $229 a month too much for your health care. You should be paying zero. And oh, by the way, it would cost you more to use the healthcare you have than to switch to one of these plans that cost from the same company, same doctors, but instead of costing $229 a month plus $50 a month to see a specialist, this one's $0 a month and it's $20 to see a specialist. And without skipping a fucking beat, one person ever, thousands of phone calls, said, nah, I think I get better healthcare if I just pay for it. Click. So understand there is at least one person on earth willing to continue to pay for healthcare. And so long as there's just one person other than me, right? Because remember, one of the things that I'm doing, and again, how self serving and selfish would it be for me to start the American Socialist Party so that I can run for office? Do you understand? So I know there's a lot of people that are like upset. People have come to me and been like, I'm so disappointed that you're not running for political office. That's not okay. It's not okay for me to establish the American Socialist Party so that I can run for office. Does everyone understand that? It's unacceptable for me to start the American Socialist Party so that I can run for office. It's unacceptable. What I need to be doing is helping build that party and find the right people for the job. Find the people that aren't going to turn their back on their constituents the moment they get into power. Mm-hmm. So I know absolutely no one's asked me to run for office, but I'm just saying, like, founding a political party and also using the political party you found to run for office yourself is wholly WHOLLY inappropriate. Absolutely inappropriate. And in every fucking timeline ever, it totally happens, guys. It totally happens. The thing about it is because at some point it's about money. But one of the things that I had already settled with, I had to figure out how can I sleep 8 hours, work 8 hours, be married, and do this show. And I am not a fucking capitalist either. So if it's not about money and it's not about me running for office, right? The show has to have purpose because it's not serving me. That's not what I I'm here for. I'm not here to serve me. And the day and the hour and the moment in which you feel, oh, he's here to serve himself. That's why he built the American Socialist Party. And not there are 600 people in the United States who are better for the job than every elected official. And it's about finding who that person is and convincing them, hey, you can't trust anyone in the Democratic or Republican Party. They are both fractured. You have MAGA in the Republican Party. You have the Blue Dog Caucus in the Democrat Party. Did I say that correctly? You have MAGA in the Republican Party, the Blue Dog Caucus in the Democratic Party. Okay? So know that Part of the reason for the formation of a new party is one, to have socialism splayed out in front of everyone. Here's what it contains: pro-equality, not hands in my pockets, let them take away Roe v. Wade, Democrats. Pro-equality, right? Pro-union, not like Joe Biden, who gets into office and immediately turns on the railroad union, who helped get him elected. I'll remember that, and I'm not one of them kids that was obsessed with trains. And I will forever remember that when Joe Biden was president, one of the first things he did as an elected Democrat that ran on being fucking pro-union was turn on the union. And remember, at my core, I am an anarchist. So I am actually like pro-strike, pro-boycott, pro-protest. Yeah, anarchy, right? Chaos. This is just organized chaos. So, hey, we've been here 90 minutes. We did our damn thing, right? Talk some news, talk some politics. I'm going to go lick my wounds. Okay. Time flies when you're having fun, right? Have a fantastic day. Okay. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I got a big knot on my face when I woke up this morning. Okay. Have a good day. Yeah, that was great. Somebody just asked a question. What's the difference between libertarianism and socialism? And we were able to explain that while they have a lot in common, libertarians are anarchists. They want the dissolution of the state which protects you from the federal government in the United States. Fuck you. And also, while we both socialists and libertarians see capitalism as a problem, socialists don't have or libertarians don't have a solution for that. Okay, and they're also opposed to private property, which is not the same as private equity, right? I would rather somebody say like private equity is what's goat fucking us right now, and to not really being able to control the stock market in order to talk about consumer trends and feelings and shit, because what private equity has done in terms of the stock market is they've basically protected half of the value of these bigger companies because they're owned by some private equity. I don't know about you, but I would love to see the collapse of private equity, right along with the collapse of the U.S. healthcare system, as long as it's into universal healthcare where everyone can go anywhere and be seen at any time and not worry about a bill. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I think, and again, there's going to be people, someone's going to come to me and say, like, no, you got to run for office. Understand, there's a pattern that has to happen for me in order for me to run on my own. And part of it is I got to feel competent at the politics part. And the only way I'm ever going to get there is with an education, is with reading a whole bunch of books and figuring it out, right? I know theoretically where I land on the political spectrum, right? Where I can say I fall on the far left. I'm not a leftist, I'm not a liberal, I'm not a Democrat, I'm none of them fucking things. I'm a socialist. I want everyone to have universal healthcare, education, income, and housing. I'm pro equality and pro union. I want to see the dissolution of this two-tier justice system we live in and a return to a time where we could trust not just our law enforcement, but our elected officials, our federal government employees who are not are entrusted with the jobs that they have, but are also protected, right? As one of the things that I want to make sure you understand, because I kind of see the disconnect between people that are patriotic and socialists, and I think it's the American flag, and I think socialists don't have a flag. Um, Actually, I think the Gadsden flag, the "Don't Tread on Me" flag, is great for the American Socialist Party movement. Um, and it has been co-opted by other movements, but it doesn't fit. You just have the flag; it doesn't mean anything. Um, but yeah, one of the things that I want to point out is you can be patriotic and be a socialist. Those things are not mutually exclusive. I'm still believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the democracy, and the country with which I live. And for the record, about 93% of the time, what is happening with this regime is a colossal failure. So I want to make sure everyone understands what is happening right now is not a successful regime. That is not what this is. It's dangerous and unsuccessful. Paving the way for if we don't go left of Democrats real fast, you run into a spot where you have a uniparty who goes unchallenged. And remember how I sat here and said sticks their fucking hands in their pockets and doesn't do anything? I'm afraid that's what happens when you have a uniparty. When the Republican Party falls apart and the Democratic Party just grows and there's nothing pulling it left, and there's too many parties that don't have all these values, that don't have a plan, that don't have leadership that you can see, that you see every day, that doesn't have a problem facing the music, talking about the news, telling you when they're hurt, when they're down, when they don't feel good, right? And does it fucking anyway. And I'm not an elected official, right? I wasn't chosen for this. This isn't a job. It's what needs to be done. And it will be done every day. And there's absolutely nothing anyone can do about it as long as we're within the TOS, right? So have a good day, everybody. Stay safe out there. We'll see you tomorrow.